Hey there, I'm Khoo Hsu Chuang again with the AutoBuzz boys. This time I've got Dato Sri Ben Yeoh, the Executive Chairman of Bermaz Auto with me, and Bermaz, of course, are the main distributors for Mazda cars in Malaysia. They've done really well the last few years. They've really attacked the premium niche segment with their whole brand lineup of SUVs and even sedan cars. I think they've done a really fantastic job. So I'm going to get to Dato Sri's mind in terms of how he's really made the brand tick in this country. So stay tuned with me.
Hi, Gu.
Hi Dato Sri. Okay, I guess this is it, right?
Yeah.
Right? So very exciting. It's a very familiar layout to me, lah. We had the Mazda 6 station wagon for a little while. You know how I ended up buying it? Because of Francis, He came for an interview once, and I was saying, "Hey, so Dato, how are you?" Then I said, I'm thinking of getting the Honda Accord because I like the back seat very big, right? And it was, "Hey, don't be crazy. You come and look at my Mazda 6. My Mazda 6, you're such a good salesman, you know. My Mazda 6, we got CBU, Bose sound system, fully leather, sunroof, how many airbags?" I was saying, really? I didn't even know that. Then true enough, I went and see the car. Hey, really nice, So I ended up getting the station wagon. My wife loves the station wagon.
But it's nice. I'm driving one in Penang, I left one in Penang.
Yeah. We had it here for a few years actually. So I also had a Camry. Then in the end we had to make a call. We had to sell one because too many cars. I got two more cars. So in the end we had to keep the newer car. So I kept the Camry. Till today she doesn't forgive me for selling the most. We've talked about this many times actually on air. Bermaz, or is it Berjaya now?
It's Bermaz Auto.
Bermaz.
Berjaya doesn't have any equity anymore.
No more?
Yeah. The last tranche was actually taken over by us, and then we release it in order to make sure that we are not too much in debt.
So there's quite a lot of it spread around with the staff and all that.
That's right.
Among retailer market and all that, right? Yours is one of the few stocks, all the analysts cover the stock. All of them are buy. Seriously?
Well, I think basically
8 analysts, 8 buy. 8, 0 hold, 0 sell.
Basically, I think it is the dividend yield that we are making sure that our stakeholders are rewarded. And because we really are very capex low, we don't invest much, and whatever investments is basically for our outlets and our capital skill training. That's all.
Yeah. But a lot of it obviously has to do with the fact that you're in the right segment of the market, right? A lot of people don't realize because, when you look at Toyota and Honda, they still got a lot of their lineup in saloons. You guys are at least 70 to 80%, not 70, but you have a nice lineup in the SUV segment. Everybody's moving to SUVs now.
Yeah, we are probably selling about 80% of our total units in the SUV segment, starting from the CX-3 right up to the CX-9. But the main bulk of it is the CX-5.
The CX-5, right? That would be your mass thing.
Our bread and butter model, because it's actually manufactured in Malaysia. And we use this as a base for the ASEAN. So we're exporting it to Thailand under the free trade scheme.
Right.
And we also do export to the Philippines as well as Cambodia.
So what's your total production volume out of Malaysia now?
We are close to about 20,000 per annum. So that makes localization of our components viable.
Makes sense, lah.
Makes sense. So because of this, we have established a few joint venture programs with the Hiroshima vendors, and also technical collaboration with our local component manufacturers. This will actually add into their marginal cost, overhead absorption, as well as acquisition of additional technology.
So how does it work? How does it differ from other guys? Because what I understand about Mazda, it's a niche product when you compare it to the Toyotas of this world. And Hiroshima is still their main manufacturing facility. So how does it differ from a Toyota arrangement or like a Honda arrangement where maybe the touch is less obvious from the Japanese side?
Well, I think, Mazda has been under the influence of Ford for quite some time.
Yeah, the former
Yeah,
CX-9,
that's right.
obviously.
So they have a very balanced view of how their products are going to be,
Yeah.
and they focus not only on the Japanese markets but also more on the European market. That's why they are the leaders now in Australia. Their products, I believe, is focused on the customer-centric. People who really love cars, people who like to drive cars. You look at their designs also. There's modern contemporary, I would say. Not really right from digital computer technology.
Yeah.
There's still an element of craftsmanship in terms of the design. So they focus a lot on the art in terms of their design concept. So I believe that appeals to a real certain segment of the motoring public.
Yeah.
And in this respect, they are different. And also they focus on technology, especially in terms of innovative technology. You look at the way they position themselves after research from autonomous technology. They put a lot of input of this into the vehicles itself, like the Sky Active Sense. So they go in stages. And what we have done is that we make sure that we move this technology into our products for the domestic market. And that has positioned ourselves differently from the mainstream Japanese products.
Yeah, what is interesting also is the fact that you're able to price your product a little bit higher than the Hondas and the Toyotas of this world, which again, it seems a bit, I wouldn't say incongruous, but I would say it's an interesting ability, whether it's because of design, whether it's because of the branding perception. I'm not sure what it's like overseas in Europe or America, but certainly in Malaysia, you get that premium pricing, and the people are paying for it. I mean, look at your CX-5. Your more expensive CX-5 is 175,000, right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money.
But if you look at the quality finish, you look at the interior, particularly
Correct.
this CX-5, you look at the finish. It's got a lot of very refined touch, and things that are very detailed, including this wooden panels, for example. They are real wood.
Yeah, this is nice actually.
Yeah, a quality finish, and it's really not plasticky. That gives you a very premium feel. We are very much closer to the continental cars now, the European brands, the luxurious European brands in terms of the internal finish and quality. The interior finish actually is what brings up our brand.
Yeah.
And also the specifications. There are a lot of safety features incorporated into our cars. For example, you are looking at the Eye Active Sense, you're looking at lane change, radio alert, and smart city brakes, adaptive headlamps. These are features that are only found in luxurious European cars. And besides that, we are very aware of the carbon footprint. So our vehicles are very fuel efficient, and it complies with the latest emission standards in Europe too. So that adds a lot of premiums to the car.
I would agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why my wife really loved your 6-station wagon. I'm not promoting the brand in any way, but I'm just citing what she said. She liked the way the interior felt. But I think the difference for me, because I am the one who's paying for the bill, right, is the fact that we went for after sales. And in a way, after sales is where you really look at the quality of the people behind the brand. And it's really good. It's really good. They really looked after you, and you got the feeling that you mattered lah. And I think today in this world, a lot of brands they don't remember their customer anymore. I will say it because you can't say it, right? I would say, for example, Toyota, right? Toyota owners are very loyal to the brand one, but they don't treat the owners very well. the kind of accessories that they give owners are so many years really, they never change, you know. I don't know whether it's a Malaysia thing or it's a worldwide thing. I don't know why sometimes, like look at Volkswagen, right? Okay, I will say this because you can't say this, right?
Yeah.
How can you lie about your numbers and how can you do this to your people? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I believe that the meeting customers' expectation is one of the key areas that we look at. And if we look at the profile of our consumers, we are now into the millennials. They are not baby boomers like us. So their expectations are totally different. They come from an era where you have the third industrial revolution, the exposure to digital technology, information.
Yeah.
So their expectation levels are slightly higher.
They are actually, aren't they?
Yes.
Right? And
So-
some of them, they don't even want to buy a car. So it takes a lot to get them to buy a car.
Correct. So in order to meet that kind of expectation, we have to go beyond the traditional methods of selling. We have to engage them. And I believe that they are a little bit more exposed and more calculative, and they are into they are more connected. And as we are more connected, we tend to acquire opinions,
Yeah.
and opinions matter to them. So you look at how they talk to each other in the electronic media,
Yeah.
how they are all connected. Everybody is connected. So if their expectations are not met, there will be a lot of negative impact.
How do you stay connected? Because obviously social media is relatively new for me.
That's right.
Must be even newer for you.
Yeah.
How do you stay connected?
Well, I think that you look at them, they are connected in the blogs, in YouTube. I believe they also have their own chat groups today,
Yeah.
and
But you check them out, or how do you do it?
yeah, we do. We engage people, young people,
Yeah.
and we get them involved in this digital technology.
Yeah.
And we focus a lot of our marketing activities also in the digital media, so
Yeah.
that way we address our consumers, because we target our consumers. Our consumer base is basically, like I say, the millennials, because the baby boomers, they are very conscious about brands.
Yeah.
They stay very loyal to brands, and it's very difficult for us to be disruptive unless we find new market segments where we can build our brands. And I find that the millennials are the ones that are going to actually move our brands forward.
I find that very interesting. So you're saying your target market is the millennial,
Yes.
and the millennials are the one that are driving sales of your brand. Is that right?
That's right. Because you look at baby boomers, for example.
These guys have money.
Yeah. Well, they come from, they probably have a little bit of funds from.
They're middle class millennials now, right? So
Millennials,
obviously they're
millennials,
professionals and what have you.
Yes. And these are the people who are a little bit more calculative. They know how to, weigh the expenses, especially on the ownership cost.
Yeah.
And that's why we came out with 5 years free maintenance. It's
Yeah.
hassle-free, so they don't really have to bother about getting their cars serviced. When the time comes, we will alert them.
Yeah.
And the cars themselves will actually have schedules, and they will alert them, and they will come to our workshops.
This is nice. This is the 2.5 turbo, the
Yeah,
one you just launched, is it?
Yes,
It's gorgeous. What's the output on this thing?
It's about 228 horses.
That's all right. And the torques on this thing?
Yeah, the torque is relatively at a very low RPM.
Yeah.
It's 420 Newton meter.
120 from a 2.5.
And
That's not bad.
and for the turbo is
It's
very
not bad.
low torque
Yeah.
at a very low RPM.
Yeah, a lot of
This
grunt.
is a twin stage actually. At low RPM, the valves open smaller, and therefore you have more shooting effect on the turbines.
Yeah.
And at higher speed, it opens bigger.
So how important is Malaysia to the overall global market for Mazda? Like for example, if it's launched in, I presume it's launched first in Japan, is it?
Yes.
So if it's first launched in Japan, how soon does Malaysia get the model?
I think the lead time now is relatively short. It's about a couple of months. It's less than a year now because we have a manufacturing operation here,
Yeah.
and that's in Kulim. And the engineers are very comfortable with the way we produce those vehicles. So we don't really need a long lead time between the manufacturing activities in Japan and our local CKD operation.
Okay, so CKD, to the untrained mind like mine, right, is presumably they will get the kits from overseas, from Hiroshima, then they'll assemble them, right? So how much expertise is needed here?
Well, the level of
in terms of engineering prowess.
Yeah, the level of knockdown in Malaysia is relatively high. Basically, this is due to logistic.
Right.
So the higher levels of breakdown means that our packing and handling is less because it will be straight from the stamping plant.
Yeah.
But then what will happen here is that we will have additional activities, welding activities. But we mitigate this with the volume, and so a lot of mechanization and robotics are now being used. So that will reduce the cost and improve the productivity.
Okay, so in terms of engineering development, R&D, is there a lot being done out of Malaysia for a local ASEAN market? Because, I mean, you will know the Philippines market, you will know the Thai market, right?
But as far as manufacturing technology is concerned, I think in terms of vehicle assembly and body shop welding processes, Malaysia, we are quite established. We have been doing CKD operations for many years already, more than 35 to 40 years. And with the establishment of the national projects, there are a lot of established engineering firms capable of making jigs and tools for the assembly industry. So we are quite advanced in that aspect. But we need a little bit of guidance from the engineers from Mazda. And they are always here in new model launch to ensure that quality standards are being met.
Yeah.
And there's always the continuous training of our human resource, both in the factory as well as in the assembly line processes.
So when you use the word national, I couldn't help but think of the National Auto Policy.
Okay, there's something very interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting because it's been delayed. It also comes with the government's ambition of having yet another national car, and it's never been an equal playing field here in Malaysia. We all know that, right? The government is trying to dismantle. I think conceptually they want to dismantle the EP system and all this. It's difficult, right? It's difficult.
That's right.
So management, right? Volume, semi-volume, premium Japanese manufacturers like yourself. How do you deal with it?
Well, I think what we do is we engage the Japanese manufacturers. I, for one in particular, brought up the question of Malaysia as a base for them, for the ASEAN region. Because if you look at the whole ASEAN market, then it becomes viable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be very selective of the products that you like to manufacture. For example, if you go into A, B segment products, then
A and B is small cars,
small cars,
and
the returns are not there,
Yeah.
and the volumes are relatively high for you to make sure that you can be viable. So we thought of it for a long time, and we decided that Malaysia should be a base for small volume, high value manufacturing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that means that our volume, we are not under pressure for volume. And at the same time, we will be able to do a certain level of local sourcing that will make sure that we have at least 40% ASEAN content. And for the vendors to be able to be viable, there must be equitable returns and there must be an economy of scale.
So translated into models, there would be the C segment and above, is it?
Yeah. SUV, for
SUVs, for example, right?
So if you look at the way we operate here, we manufacture SUV and export to Thailand. Well, Thailand, they will do the Mazda 2, which is a B segment car, because they have government incentive there in terms of eco car. So their domestic base for that volume is relatively high.
And they would do a lot of commercial trucks as well.
That's right.
So how did the government respond when you said these kind of things to them? Were they receptive? Sometimes there seems to be a bit of a communication gap between private sector and government.
Well, I believe that certain of the government officers, if you take your time to explain and engage them, they will be able to understand. But there must be evidence to show that this is, really taking place, because a lot of people go and approach them for many things and it never really happened. So that sort of put them a little bit on the defensive. But
why do you think they can't deliver on that? Whatever is asked of them.
Well, maybe they were not so transparent when they went over, to talk to the authorities and the administrators. Whereas we are totally transparent in the sense that we are subjected to audit, and they not only audit our factories, they also go to our vendors to see that really there are technical collaboration between the Hiroshima vendors, our Mazda vendors, and the local vendors. And there are some joint venture programs, and these joint venture programs are not only for the domestic market, it actually look at the ASEAN market in totality. So that means that we have opportunity to make sure that the vendors not only acquire technology, but they are able to open up their resources to the bigger ASEAN market.
So you have been in this industry for dozens of years, right, Dato Sri? You know the landscape, right? You see how it's changed over the years. I don't know how much longer you're going to work for, obviously, because...
Well, I'm passionate for the industry.
Correct. How do you see this industry in 10 years' time? Malaysia, in terms of the region, even 20 years' time, where do you see it?
I think the landscape of the automotive industry will change because of disruption. You see there is a lot of disruptive element. The auto industry is not the same now as it used to be 2 decades ago. See, the vendor system have changed. Non-traditional vendors have now become part and parcel of the auto industries. People in the electronic industries, people in the software industries, and digitization in the auto industry is now very dominant. You could see the influence of digital technology in the development of the automotive products. The engine, for example, today we are able to harness more than 60% efficiency from the internal combustion engines and make it almost a very clean internal combustion engines, which a decade ago would seem almost impossible. Right? You're looking at air fuel mixtures today of above 20 parts of air to 1 part of fuel. This is a result of digital technology and Internet of Things, because the management of the combustion system within the engine is now so advanced that we will be looking at a very positive approach to internal combustion engines. And also electrification of vehicles.
So I think we've talked about this in the past, right? Officially, unofficially, the path towards full electric vehicle status. I think Malaysia wants to get there.
Yeah.
Most countries want to get there for a variety of reasons. Where do you think Malaysia sits on this aspiration?
Well, I think it has got to be done in stages. I always bring it back to the basic of the well-to-will principle. When we say well-to-will, it means that we need energy, the energy source. So electrical energy should be sourced from various
From clean means,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It shouldn't be
from-
coal and gas fired.
Yes.
right?
So if you look at electric source from electric energy power source from coal, then it is
That is not clean.
Yeah, not clean. But today we are able to harness, solar energy, wind energy, as well as hydroelectric energy. But these are very costly. So the cheapest means is still burning of fuel.
Yeah.
And for power plants, burning of fuel can either be fossil fuel or coal. And if you look at that, then what is the objective? And there's always the infrastructure, the problems of infrastructure. Today, technology for electrical batteries have not been that advanced that you can have a quick charge. Whereas internal combustion engines, you have fuel stops and
Yeah.
almost immediately
That's right.
you can move forward. Whereas for electrical vehicles, there is a range.
So what is the typical Mazda going to look like in, say, 2030? What will it comprise in terms of the powertrain, in terms of the interior,
There
in
will,
terms of the ownership structure?
there will be electrical vehicles basically because of certain environmental issues for certain countries. The government encourages electrical vehicles because actually there's zero pollution, right? But there will be certain level of electrification on the Mazda vehicles going forward because we are looking at the efficiency. Internal combustion engines will still be relevant. I said that because they will be more efficient.
You think they will still be relevant?
Yeah, they
It's
will-
still present in engines in 10
Yeah, of
years'
course
time?
they will. But
Yeah.
there will be a certain level of electrification, to assist in terms of during accelerations and during a slow start, where this is the most polluting time through the exhaust system, and also where the fuel consumption is the highest. But if you run an engine that is consistently clean, then it should be at not so much a variable RPM, should be as consistent as possible in terms of the RPM range.
Hence consumption and hence economy.
That's right.
And then what about ownership structures? Do you go down the path of the leasing, the evolution of the leasing model now?
Well, I would always like to say this, we always think about ACE. ACE is about autonomous vehicle, connectivity, electrification, and sharing. So
Yes.
in future, I believe that there will be a lot of car share because mobility is something that is essential, right? And the level of mobility, how we move around, depends on infrastructure and also depends on a person's coverage, where he wants to go. And for example, if you want to go somewhere where there is no proper infrastructure coverage, then you need self-mobility. But that's not as often as is required. So this is where the time that you need an independence, you need an automobile to do. But that's not necessary to own one.
So how will it work for Mazda? Because I think most makers now are working out different models where you can even rent the car for a certain duration. I think it's as low as maybe 6 months now or 1 year. But of course it's going to get shorter, right? Obviously. How does the Mazda mindset
Well,
approach
like
this
I
one?
say, we are talking about the millennials, and we are talking about later on the Z
Yeah,
generation. These are the people who don't aspire to own.
Yeah, they want to
Baby
just rent.
boomers
Yeah.
are different. They like to own, they like to inherit things. They like to own. But people,
That's people like me.
yeah, the younger generation, we call them the rental generation.
Yeah.
To them, owning and get themselves involved in long-term commitment is a no-no. See? So these are the people that we have to address because they will be the consumers of the future. So there must be programs and packages to see how we can engage them, how we can attract them to short-term lease, short-term use of these vehicles without really long-term commitment. So you can look at various areas like, for example, leasing or car share, which is a group share basis, and ownership clubs where you can be a member of a club.
Can it be done at your level though, or rather than being outsourced to a third party?
Yeah, we would like to explore it. It's basically looking at a platform to work on this. So once we have the platform to work on this, then I think we will embark on this. But initially, we will leave it to the people who has got the resources as well as the experience to do this, and we will engage them.
So how does a company pivot in a 360 sense, if at all, towards the millennium? I mean, obviously ownership structure is one, but even the way the car is set up, even the way the car feels and looks, it's a very different appeal to someone to say like of my age.
Yes.
Is that a complete pivot or is it just a partial pivot?
No, we have to address a few issues. One of which is these people are very conscious of the environment, the new world, so they want to protect the environment. So vehicles have to address issues that it is environmental friendly. And these people are always connected and they want to be connected.
Yeah.
Even in the vehicle itself, they want to be connected. So connectivity is one of the key areas that we look at when we sell cars to the millennials. The other thing is that they are all well informed and they know what they want. So features, especially safety features, one of the critical issues. And also autonomous specifications has to be added to show that we moving towards autonomous technology.
What about materials? What about things like wood and leather, right? Obviously those are limited in quantity and they're not very environmental. How do you see that front?
I think we need to be able to recycle some of this.
Yep.
So I believe that the material used today has got to be very green in that they have to be able to be recycled. So looking at this, I think technology has a lot of input in development of green materials. And in this respect, I think Mazda is putting a lot of emphasis on this issue. But most importantly, I think when people drive a car, it's got to be fun. And that is where we focus on an area that a car should not only be for mobility, it's got to be for fun, and you have to drive it and be able to enjoy it.
Okay, so, and that's correct, absolutely 100% correct. But in a world of autonomous driving,
Yes.
there is no driving anymore. It's completely autonomous.
Yes. But if full autonomous vehicles, that's for mobility, right? But we want a vehicle that can be driven with joy. At the same time, autonomous features are there as a co-pilot to assist. For example, you look at what we have in the car now, we call it a GVC. The GVC basically is a driver assist software that when you turn,
You don't feel
you don't
you
feel,
don't feel nauseous, right?
Yes,
It's the
at
vector
the
control thing.
Yes. At the same time, if you oversteer, for example, you have the engine talk to assist you. Now we have gone a stage further. We have slight braking to make sure that the vehicle is corrected autonomously,
Okay.
independently, and that brings the vehicle back to stability. So you can corner at speeds that sometimes will be out of your skill
Yeah, so
levels.
to be honest about it, right? Yeah.
So you can do that, and that means that you put a lot of fun back into driving.
So you are an industry stalwart, right? You have come from various other organizations. Do you have a management style, Dato Sri?
No, this is something that's very difficult to answer. It's not really a management style, but I believe that management is about using resources available to you.
Yeah.
Okay? So to me, what is very important is our human resource. And if you can motivate them and upskill them continuously, then I think you will have a very good team. It's not about me, but basically it's about the team. The team that works and nurture the organization. So the growth engine is basically the philosophy to continuously improve and be competitive.
When you look at people that you want to join the organization, what are the things that you look for in people?
Well, people that are firstly, they're passionate about the industry and they are motivated in the sense that they like the industry, they want to see themselves moving forward in the industry, and most importantly, they also like the brand. So if you get people who just takes the opportunity to be in an organization just for the careers without being passionate about the things they do, then I believe they won't be able to contribute at the highest level.
When you meet people for the first time, right? What do you look out for? Do you look out for the way they dress, the way they speak, how they treat others? What do you look out for? What strikes you about people in a professional sense, not socially, but professionally?
I believe personality is very important. Okay, the way they conduct themselves. You look at human behavior, their body language will tell you a lot of things. And when they talk, is it always about I or we? These are the subtle messages that actually releases their personality. Whether they are team players or whether they are individuals, and whether they are ambitious enough, passionate enough in the things they do. It's all about the conversation. But personality is also very important, how they conduct themselves, because when you like a person, the person has got to be pleasant. Right? So a pleasant personality is very important because that gives you the first impression of a person. Well, dress may not be
You may not be a determinant of ability, right?
Right, yeah. But a person that dress neat is also very important. It shows the personality, whether he's organized. These are some of the things. It's very difficult for me to, because these are what we call a gut feel. You have to, you have to be able to respond and warm up to a person through conversation. First impression ultimately will lead to a warm conversation, and then that will lead again to more in-depth knowledge of the person.
What kind of person do you think will be able to succeed in the 21st century, Dato Sri, in your opinion? So for workers as well as for your own family, right? How do you push them in a certain direction?
Well, we are in the age of digital technology, big data, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. So many of technologies already, input into computers, and engineering capability, etc., will all be done by the artificial intelligence, assisted by big data. So we are looking also at an age where surgeons will be aided by robots. So we are moving towards a different era.
How do you think people should evolve?
And I believe that we still need human beings. So we need people with different skills now. People who should be creative. So I would think that the next generation of people should be more creative. Creative in the sense that they should be able to use resources available to them. Resources like all the intelligence and the big data available to them, they should be able to use it and create more from this intelligence that are available to us. So creativity, we are looking at people with creativity. And also we are looking at people with certain sets of skills. Skills that we don't need basically, we need technocrats, people who understand basic engineering and all, but who are able and skilled in repairs, because computers and robots cannot repair themselves. To a certain levels, we can use robots to repair robots, but we need people who are skilled enough, people with vocational skills, right, to be able to do this kind of maintenance. So two types of skill. Creativity and technical skills. That means craftsmanship and artisans. We need craftsmen and artisans.
There's this guy I met recently called Dr. Ray Chua from the Singapore Management University, Dato Sri. And he had done a lot of research and creativity, right? And he found out after studying 30 over countries that Malaysia is one of the tightest countries in the world. Tightest means tight versus loose, okay? Tight doesn't lead to creativity. Loose leads to creativity, because loose in terms of culture, loose in terms of norm, in terms of big government, small government, etc., right? So we in Malaysia, we are constricted, generally speaking, the population by an overbearing government, cultural norms, religious norms, right? Asian norms. These are not things which lend themselves to creativity, but yet we need creativity in business. So professionally, how do you overcome this? Well, and even within your family, right? What are you doing to encourage creativity among your family members?
I think traditionally we are raised in a very restricted environment.
Yeah, Chinese, right?
Yeah. Okay, we respect the patriarch of the family, that means the elders. Even before we eat, we make sure that the senior members of the family, they do that first, and then we will go down addressing everybody, please, eat, things like this. So the respect. But that doesn't hinder us from being creative, because the modern society encourage connectivity. So as long as we are connected, we see the world beyond us. At the same time, we respect the tradition within. So if we are good in being able to maintain our cultural heritage, at the same time, we should expose ourselves. So our kids, for example, should stick to tradition, respect for the elders, respect society, be able to contribute, socially responsible, and at the same time we must be exposed to global trends. You look at my grandkids, for example. I mean, they are exposed to traditional sports. At the same time, I don't restrict them from participation in internet games, digital games. That will give them a very well balanced environment. So their skill sets will be totally different.
Did you send your grandkids and grandkids overseas to study? Did you find that it was the right thing to do as well?
Yes, I think it is not so much the education in terms of theoretical education, it's the exposure. Because when you send kids out, for example, in an environment of higher learning, they are exposed to many cultures through their peers. There are people from Asian countries, for example, you send your kids to Australia, you get people from China, from Indonesia, from Thailand, from Malaysia, Singapore, and you get the Aussies. You get some of them also from different European countries. So it's a well blend environment, exposure to various cultures, different thinking, different mindset, which is good. And that means that they are not so narrow in their thinking. The perceptions of things are not very narrowed down. And I guess that we should do more. Sometimes it's not going there, but allowing people to come.
Yeah, you're right. I guess what about Malaysia then? Malaysia continues to be at its own crossroads. You've seen it all, right? You've seen all the ups and downs. Do you think we're in a good place now?
Well, this is my personal opinion. I think that we should put politicking aside and look forward, because it's really a beautiful country. We have cultural blends, and we have good foundation before. And I believe there are still a lot of people here who are very concerned about the country, who loves the country. And in one way or another, very subtly, there are a lot of people who are contributing towards building a better future for all. And I believe that they should start from the private sector, from corporations. In many ways, you can do that. You can start by making sure that your organization contributes through society in various forms as good corporate citizens, and also in developing the future generation, educating them in various areas, in skills. We cannot complain always that our education system is lagging behind, but we should, if we are good corporate citizens, to actually take the step further. For what we are trying to do in our organization is we are recruiting young people. We train them to be in the automotive industry. We train them to communicate in English, because basically all our technical information and all the relevant technical data are always written down in English.
Yeah.
We teach them to be computer literate, how to do simple applications. We also train them through years in automotive technology and build their skills. So these are structural programs recognized internationally. in collaboration with Mazda and also accredited by international automotive society like the International Institute of Motor Industry, UK. So when we give accreditation and recognition to these young people and give them a career, hopefully we are able to provide certain skills. And within the organization itself, we are continuously upgrading the skills of our employees and giving them exposure, how to be good, responsible citizens. Like for example, we have the Mazda Medical Fund. It is a fund contributed by members of the Mazda Group, Mazda owners, and also employees themselves. So they actually manage the funds. Employees manage the funds. So during that time, and this creates a sense of responsibility among the employees, their social responsibilities. And at the same time, we are able to assist people with critical illness. And we are very focused on two areas. One is end-stage renal deficiency.
Why the one in particular?
Because these are the ones that require a lot of funds and very expensive. And end-stage, cancer patients where they need a lot of funds in terms of medication as well as therapy. For kidney deficiency, they need to go for dialysis. And some of the patients cannot fully afford multiple dialysis sessions. And this is where the dialysis centers come to us and say, okay, this patient can only afford 2, but he needs 3, so can you help out? So we do that. And we do that with the funds that we have generated through charity programs as well as through contribution from our Mazda owners, the club activities, the employees. Yeah, so
interesting. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that we don't even know.
So the message is start complaining.
Yeah.
Do something about it. Yeah. And you can do it in a very small little way. If everybody does that, then it will be a better society. And I think Malaysia is a beautiful country.
So what does Dato Sri Ben Yeoh, the man, have in his garage at home? What cars do you have?
Well,
I'm
all
sure you know
Mazdas.
more. Are you sure? So no Lamborghinis,
No.
Ferraris.
Well, a very old Porsche.
Yeah? Which one?
The 911 Turbo.
Oh yeah? From which year?
I think it's a 996.
Oh, it's a 996. Is it a air cool? Is it air cool?
No, it's liquid cool.
The water cool.
cool.
I see. The last of the water cooler, that's it, right? So you are a bit of a car nut.
Yeah, that's how I ended up in the industry. I've never done anything else except moving around with cars, fiddling with cars, and then later on in my life, managing sales of cars.
So are you an engineer by background, or?
Well, I'm trained as an automotive engineer.
Oh, I see. Which is why you went through a whole explanation in terms of why the CX-5 Turbo is such high on torque and low RPMs, and you almost lost me there, by the way.
Well, basically, I think it's the passion for automobile, and I think I love cars. I like to drive, and I believe, like I said before, everybody likes to drive, and we have then to develop their skills to drive, or we have products that will assist them to drive.
To exaggerate their abilities.
Yes, that's right.
You mentioned all Mazdas. Which ones do you have?
I have the CX-9 at home. I have the MX-5.
The one which you're driven around in, obviously, right?
Yes, and the MX-5.
Which MX-5?
I think the ND.
You have the ND.
Yeah,
You have the RF or
RF.
you have the RF, which you drive by yourself?
Yes, I drive by myself, of course.
Of course, yes.
I have the NA before,
Uh-huh.
but I sold it off. That was quite a fun car.
Any regrets about selling the NA?
Sorry?
Any regrets selling
Well,
the NA?
yeah, I should have kept it, because it was turbocharged and.
Oh, is yours is
yeah,
turbocharged?
yeah.
So yours is the 1.8.
1.6.
1.6
Yeah,
turbo.
turbo.
That was not
You fixed it,
original.
yeah.
Oh, you fixed
No,
it.
I fixed it.
You're a real cunt, man. What else? What else do you have? Just the two, or?
Well, an S-Class that was basically a business car.
Okay.
And I had that for I think about 10 years now. It's lying in the garage, not being used.
Interesting. And then on weekends, what do you read? Are you a Netflix man, or are you a novel man, or are you a social man?
Well, I like to read basically to keep up with things.
Yep.
And, I believe that you should be aware of the environment. You should know, keep updated with things, especially in a very disruptive environment like ours. We should try as far as possible, spend some time to keep up.
What are you reading?
All sorts of things.
Which ones? Books, magazines. What is your?
Books, magazines, sometimes from the electronic media.
Yeah.
And I think I find it easy to read e-books nowadays.
Yeah, really?
It's very fast, very easy. Yeah.
So what was the last most memorable book that you read?
Well, a couple, but I have now tried and read more journals.
Okay.
In terms of technology, and I find that articles written by McKinsey is very interesting. And,
McKinsey Consulting, yeah. Okay.
And it keeps you, at the forefront of things.
Yep. Interesting that you should choose journals by the consulting companies, because they would be. It's their business to be on top of things, right?
Yes.
So they can see the trends coming. What do you think is going to be most disruptive for Malaysia specifically? Specifically to Malaysia, not the world, but specifically to Malaysia.
Well, I think we are in the stage that we have to adapt in order not to be behind.
Yeah.
So to close the gap, I think what the government should really look at now is to look at a way we implement our education system. So I believe that we should now open up, and because we are in a very conducive environment, we should use Malaysia as an area for higher education. We have many universities who are relocating themselves over here. And this is a good opportunity in a very subtle manner to expose our local people more to global influence, right? Because here we are very political in nature. And if we say or tend to be too open, we will be very offensive. So it has got to be a natural progression. And the natural progression is to be exposed. And I think making Malaysia a Southeast Asian education hub would be the ideal situation for us to be exposed. And I think it may be disruptive, but in the longer term, it will be very productive.
Adaptability.
Yeah.
What you mentioned, creativity. Again, what you mentioned. Malaysia is a very tight culture.
Yes.
And what you say is also very true. It's a transition from what we're used to what we have to be in the future. Are you hopeful?
Well, I think we should, but we should do things in a very subtle manner. We should not politicize a lot of things because we have to be aware of the sensitive nature of our environment. We are a multiracial country, so people are always very sensitive. So we have to do things that will be productive without being very aggressive and disruptive.
How would you do that now? Without being left too far behind?
Is to get people exposed, and look at the way that people always think that Malaysia is a very good base for education. That's why you have relocation and of universities here. So we should capitalize on that and stop blaming our education system and let people be exposed, and they will know what they don't know.
Do you think people can change fast enough?
Well, it's a matter of adaptability, and I think if people are aware, they will be able to adapt. So they should be exposed. Once they are exposed, they will, like I say, most important, know what you don't know.
That's the problem, is it? Not many people are aware, and if they are, how many are honest enough to admit it?
Well, it's a very interesting session with you, Khoo. I enjoyed it.
So what's in store for you this weekend?
Well, me, my life is very simple.
Yeah.
I'm now enjoying my leisure through golf.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Where do you play?
I play around here. I'm a member
Saujana.
of Blackberry, Saujana, and traditional club like KJNS.
Subang, yeah. Subang is
so-
gorgeous.
Yeah. Whenever I get a chance, I'll go outdoors, get lost
Yeah?
in the environment. Yeah, I do a lot of hiking and fishing. I
Yeah?
like angling. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Where do you go fishing?
yeah, all the lakes and
Oh, interesting. That's nice.
get away from the bustle and rustle of the city. Okay, very interesting
Kamsia.
conversation. Kamsialu. And then you should. Okay, these are off the record already. You should talk more often. Come here and have a cup of.
Yeah, cut the jalan je.
Ah.
We're having lunch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.